Welcome back to the Barry Charles Footy Show, the hottest rugby league channel in the planet. Yes, Dominic Young. What a game. What a weekend. 4 tries for him. The Warriors comeback of the season. The Toothless Tigers, yet again disappointing for you Tigers fans. And so much more on the review show. Let's firstly look at the Dally M leaderboard of my picks from the season. So I gave my 3 points to Sean Johnson. I thought he was outstanding for the Warriors, orchestrating a symphony in the second half, and got the kick in the wet, which is unbelievable. My 2 points obviously went to Dominic Young. He was outstanding, his 4 tries, and my 1 point goes to Harry Grant for absolutely carving up the Rabbitohs. You could argue that Tom Trbojevic was outstanding and quite a few others, but if we look at my Dally M leaderboard, over the first 5 rounds, I have Reece Walsh on 4 points on his own. Then 3 points to Cherry Evans, Montoya, Nico Hines, and Sean Johnson. 2 points to Jacob Carraz, Tohu Harris, Cody Walker, and Tommy Turbo. And my 1 point to Hamas Sofado, Jermaine Asako, and Mitchell Moses and Harry Grant. Yes, that is the Dally M leaderboard for me so far this season. But yeah, obviously the big talking point out of the round was all the hip drops. I could argue some of them weren't that much of a penalty. Whether they were worth 10 minutes in the bin in the Sharkies game, I thought that was a bit debatable. I thought the Ockenborough one was the worst one against the Cowboys, and they only got 1 week and the others got 2 or 3 weeks. I know there's loading involved, but most people don't understand all their loading, so it seems a bit unfair. Ockenborough's one looked the worst and they got the least. Yeah, let's have a look at my tips of the week. The Roosters, cha-ching. The Panthers, cha-ching. The Storm, bow wow. The Seagulls, half a point. The Dragons, bow wow. The Broncos, cha-ching. The Warriors, bow wow. And finally, the Bulldogs, cha-ching. So 4.5 out of 8, not bad. Running total, 24.5 out of 40 games, so 60% average. Let's get to the footy. Yes, first up, it was the domination of the Roosters until the Eels got back into it in the last 5 minutes. Yes, this footy game wasn't the greatest of games over the weekend. Two sin bins didn't help Parramatta, and that's where the Roosters scored with a couple of their tries. The Roosters should have won this game probably by 50 the way that they were dominating, but they didn't. But obviously with James Tedesco going down, that sort of affected their interchange. From the players, Daniel Tupou, he was outstanding, 200 metres, with Jackson pulling off far behind at 170 metres. So they really worked hard for the Roosters. Yes, to me, there's a bit of issues here with the question marks for me is what is happening with the bench for Parramatta. They're just not getting enough out of them. The forward rotation's just not there. They're just struggling to really deliver. Ryan Madison's come back flying his 2 games, but the rest of the team are not really living up to that potential. Sean Lane believes to return, so they will help. But I think they need to make a few changes. Dylan Brown, he was good this week, but he needs to do that every week, and that's what they'll be expecting from the big dollar man. For me, Josh Hodgson, does he deserve to stay in the team? I'm not sure he brings enough to the side, and probably doesn't suit the way they want to play, which is interesting. Josh Hodgson, they just really want to distribute it, where his creativity maybe is not helping their attack. What can you do? Should Brendan Hand start? That's another option. Josh Hodgson goes to lock, maybe. Not sure if that'll work either, but you never know. the Eagles need to do something anyway because their next few games they've got a chance to go on a run. The Tigers and Bulldogs, you'd expect they could win both those games and they'll need to. But then they got the Broncos at home, the Knights and the Titans. So they got a chance here to really go on a run, and they need to. If they want to be a top 4 side, they have to win 4 out of 5, even top 8. They just need to really get on a roll. For you Parramatta fans, yeah, you'd expect but the Knights and Bulldogs won't be walkovers for them. Yeah. Looking at the Roosters on the other side there, they got a tough draw coming up here. They got the Storm, the Sharks away, and then the Dragons at home, Warriors away, and then Cowboys at home. They could possibly only win 2 of these games, or they could easily win a few more. If they want to be a true premiership threat, they will win 4 out of 5. Jerry Manu, I expect, would go to fullback with Tedesco out. Yeah, I'm just not sure what the future holds for if we're looking at the Raiders. They were absolutely obviously there was going to be some tips about the pressure of their Jack Whiten being out and see what their depth was like, and they were absolutely diabolical. 53-12. The Panthers put on an absolute showing, especially in the second half. They just went rampant. Raiders were never going to win this game with 67% completion rate compared to the Panthers 80%. That really just shows you where the Raiders are this season. And Penrith had 59% of the ball. No wonder the score really rocketed out to that sort of figure. But for the Raiders, the concerning thing is only 2 players ran over 100 metres, Tomoko and Tapane. So it's not NRL standard. Ricky Stewart obviously wasn't happy after the game, and a lot of improvement is needed going forward for the Raiders. But for the Panthers, it was just a clinic. You had Tohoa 200 metres, and you had 9 other players running over 100 metres. When you have a team performance like that, you win the game. No doubt about it. They were really clinical. But 2 players that still, I've been saying it every week, really need to go to another level. Crichton, he was a little bit better this game, but he would be in a game like this. He's still not playing to his best, as he got 1 win on the Bulldogs next season. And Jerome Luai hasn't been his best all season. He did make a couple of line break assists, but he's not been the same this season. And he'll be pushing to get some form under the board, because I think his Origin jumper is under threat by Nico Hines, and I think Nico Hines deserves to be the number 6. Unless Jerome Luai puts in some good performances in the next month or so, I would expect Nico Hines to get the number 6 jersey. Yes. But obviously for Parramatta, they have some good news. That their replacement for Kikau, they've actually got 2 good replacements. Garner probably hasn't been super impressive, but he hasn't been bad either. And Zach Hoskins has absolutely come out flying in his last 2 games. Will one of them go to the bench? That's going to be the question mark here. But I do like Peachy. Because he can play a lot of positions. But then where does he put Jamin Salmon? There's too many role players. You can possibly play 2 role players on the bench. But then do you want to leave Luke Garner or Zach Hoskins out of the team? So it's going to be an interesting dilemma for Cleary. So at least he still has some options, considering that they lost a couple of good players last year. Penrith, let's have a look at their draw going forward. They've got some games they need to win. They got the Eagles at home, the Knights away, the Rabbitohs away, Tigers at home, and then the Warriors away. So their draw is not an easy draw, obviously. And we will find out in the next 5 weeks if they're truly a title contender, or they're going to be just trying to scrape into the top 8 this year. On the other side of the Raiders, they probably got the easiest draw out of anyone in the next 5 rounds. Obviously, the first game, Broncos, I can't see them winning that. But the next 4, they've got the opportunity. When they take on the Dragons at home, then the Bulldogs away, Eels at home, and Dolphins as well at home. They really need to get on the roll here if they're going to be any chance for Raiders. If the Raiders don't do well in this next 5 weeks, this season is dead and buried. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do get the 4 wins, but I can also see them falling off the wagon. So it's going to be interesting to see what Ricky can get out of his team going forward. Now let's have a look at the next game up here. The Melbourne Storm. They just absolutely ran riot on the Rabbitohs, absolutely carving them up. They showed them how to play football. Yes, they did. They absolutely stormed the Rabbitohs. And the Storm now have won 8 of the last 9 against the Rabbitohs. It's a bogey team for the Rabbitohs. And really, to be honest, it was all around Harry Grant carving up. But also, the kicking game of the Storm absolutely smashed the Rabbitohs. And the Peasant absolutely outstanding. I think he stays in the team. I honestly would keep him in the team. I'd have him there at 7 with Munster. I'll put Hughes at fullback at the moment till Pappenhausen's back. And when Pappenhausen's back, that's when you make a decision. Do you put Jerome in the centres? Or you could possibly play 13 for you, Jerome. I think at least they got the options here. I think Peasant has to play. I think he's playing better than Jerome in my personal opinion. And then obviously if he does tire out, Jerome Hughes can easily just go back into 7 if he fades out, as new players can tend to do. So I just think the Rabbitohs, it's going to be interesting going into the future with the Rabbitohs. The Storm side, to me, on their performance, just back to their best, absolutely back to the old Storm. Unfortunately for the Rabbitohs, Elias is just not up to Anna Reynolds' standards, even though they did make the prelim last year. Still, Anna Reynolds is just above what Elias is at the moment, and their spine is not delivering week in, week out. Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell, and Damien Cook are going in and out of games, and they should be the best players on the field, but when they're not the best players on the field, that's when the Rabbitohs get underdone. Cook defended well in this game. I'm not saying he had a bad game, but Cody Walker and Latrell was not too bad, but still, he goes in and out of games. 172 metres, that was good from Latrell, but yeah. What can we do? What can the Rabbitohs do going forward here? Thomas Burgess is outstanding 200 metres. The Rabbitohs, just their forward pack is not the strongest, and that's maybe what's not helping them either. That they could do with another good. They've got some good players, but just the bench is not that strong, which a lot of the teams this season are struggling with, is the bench not having the quality of players. Now they've got 17 teams in the competition. The Rabbitohs going forward, they've got a chance to get on a roll as they take on the Bulldogs, then the Dolphins, and then they got the Rabbitohs, Panthers, and Broncos. So there's some games coming up for the Rabbitohs to get themselves rolling, because they need to. But it could be one of those, the Rabbitohs are struggling to make the top 8 after the next 5 rounds. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare with the Storm. Their draw, they have a blockbuster with the Roosters on the Easter weekend. Seagulls away, then the Warriors at home. Then there will be a famous Anzac game, which is normally Storm run right, but this is the year of the Warrior. And then they finish with the Rabbitohs and Broncos. So in 5 weeks' time, we will see if the Storm are back or they're back to the herd. It's going to be interesting. But the way they played last week, they're definitely going to be a premiership threat in 2023. Let's go to the Saturday night football, where all is not lost here. Where all the talk was Manly, we're just going to carve up and absolutely run riot but the Knights showing some grit, which hasn't been seen in the last 10 years. They really have improved. Obviously, the defense wasn't a defensive game, but it was still a high-quality game. Led by Dominic Young, 247 metres. He was outstanding. He stole the show. Also, Tom Travojevic is back. That was what mainly like to see, 297 metres. He was absolutely in everything. And lucky not to get any points this week from me. But Dominic Young was the better for mine. If you looked at the match stats, it was pretty fairly even match, and that's why the result was like it was. As you could see, Lockie Muller went for big 280 metres as well. So the fullbacks really did big yards in this game. But the interesting point for Unites fans is, where does Ponga fit into the squad now? And where do you put Lockie Miller if you're going to put him back to fullback? That's the question. Can Lockie Miller go to 13? Because there's going to be an interesting one, because Lockie Miller's been one of their best, and whether he can play on the wing or centre. I mean, they got Gagai, Braden Best, Greg Marju. You could probably maybe put him in for Greg Marju and Dominic Young, but do you want to change it? It's a very interesting time for the Knights, because the Knights are actually improved, and they only just lost to the Warriors in the first round, and people saying it was bad, but really it's proven that the Warriors are a better team this year. So the Knights are definitely a chance of making the top 8, but whether they do, time will tell. Big meters from Greg Marju again. Gagai was outstanding. Safiti, he is pushing himself to get back in the Origin arena. Daniel Safiti, he's been very good this season. But Frizzell, I think he needs to go to another level, because he is Origin. He could easily be back in the Origin team, but he's just not delivering enough. And that was the same with the Dragons. He was a little bit in and out of games with the Dragons as well when he was playing there, but he was at that time they were playing well, the Dragons, when he was really in the Origin scene. So Tyson Frizzell needs to lift, if I was looking for someone who needs to lift and on the other side of the page, Manly, well, Paseka was outstanding, so was Olakawatu. They were very, very, very good. From the performances, both teams look like top 8 teams, but I don't see either of them being a top 4 team because of the defense. Obviously, Manly have the potential to be a top 4 team, but if they're going to defend like that, it's not looking good. The Daly Cherry Evans couldn't get it done, so that was a little disappointing for you Manly fans, because they had the opportunities to win. Both teams had the opportunities to win, to be honest, but they just couldn't get it done. Manly's next 5 games here, they got the Panthers, Storm, Tigers, Titans, and the Broncos. So they only got 2 games that you'd expect they will win, and the other ones a bit tough. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Manly do bounce back. They're sort of winning one and losing one at the moment, and that suggests to me they're not going to be a top 4 team, even though I believe they can be, but they're just not defensively there. On the other side, the Knights draw. They'll be wanting revenge from round 1 against the Warriors. That's going to be a cracking game. Then Penrith and Cowboys, and Eels and Titans. They got a few home games, so they got a chance to get on the roll, Knights, and they need to, because they need to get a few wins on the board. Otherwise, she's going to be chasing points. It's going to be an interesting for both the Knights. The Knights, I see them missing the 8 personally, but they are playing good enough footy. If they can improve the defense, they could definitely push for a top 8 squad. But I think Adam O'Brien is walking out the door if they don't make the 8. Dragons and the Dolphins. Well, to be honest, I did not see this coming. I could see the Dragons winning, but the Dragons winning by this much. But yes, obviously, Sean O'Sullivan, they were missing big time. Milford going down obviously didn't help, but I don't think it would have changed the result of this match. They were just too clinical and just way too good for... Ben Hunt was outstanding. He was back in, and Moses Sully really played very good, considering the pre-match talk that was a bit bizarre, but he delivered on game day, which was what mattered. And Blake Laurie ran for 150 metres. He was outstanding. And probably one of the unsung heroes of the Dolphins here, Osako. He's been outstanding, Jermaine Osako. 197 metres. He's been their best week in, week out. But the rest of the team just looked a little bit disjointed and overpowered in the end. No doubt that Nicarima will come into the side, but I'm not sure he's the answer either. They need a general. I don't think they've got a general in their squad outside of Sean Sullivan. If we look at the Dragons' draw going forward, they've got the Titans, the Raiders, Roosters, Bulldogs, and Tigers. So they've got a decent draw. They've got a chance to go on a roll, and Griffin, to at least keep the journalists away, can do that with a few wins now. I can't see him being re-signed anyway, regardless if he does well or not. But he's got his chance to prove himself. I think if he doesn't perform in the next 5 weeks, surely he's got to go bye-bye off his sword. Now, for the Dolphins, they've got the Cowboys, the Rabbitohs, Titans, Raiders, and Sharks. It's not that bad a draw, but to be honest, I think they're only going to win one of the next 5 games. I think they've lost their thrills, and with Sean O'Sullivan gone, they're going to have to really dig deep to be any chance. Maybe a wild card if they put Mason Teague in the halves could be an option. So it's going to be interesting to see what Wayne Bennett does with his men going forward, because they started the season very well. And everyone was talking they were a top 8 team, but I think the rails have fallen off. Let's go to the Broncos versus Tigers, which to me was probably the worst game of the round. Didn't learn much about either team because both were real low completion rates. The Broncos just overpowered them. They wanted it more, and that was the difference, really. The Tigers were woeful. Tim Sheens has no answers, and Brooks should be gone. I believe this should be his last game for the Tigers, but from what all reports are, it's going to be back to Adam Dewey and Luke Brooks. Why do they just keep picking Luke Brooks? I just don't understand it. Craziness. You're going to continue to lose because they're not going to make the top 8 regardless. Either way, they're not going to win the top 8. You might as well take the punt and try and improve your team now instead of just struggling, because they could be 10-0 when we get to the draw. Adam Dewey, he was trying his best at fullback, but he's not a fullback, and that chance is expected to be made. For the Tigers fans to say some players that actually played well, Clemmer and Sean Bloor were very good for them, so there was something. But Dane Laurie, the talk says he's not going to be back, and maybe that's because maybe there's a bit of chat around the back that he says he should be in the team, and maybe that's why he is not there. Uppy Coruscant needs to lift. He's just not running the ball. He's not looking like a threat at all. Something needs to change there. He really needs to improve. And on the other side, Billy Walters has really improved the last 2 weeks, and if he can continue this, maybe he can follow in his dad's footsteps and get a premiership. He has struggled to be a consistent footy player over his career, but maybe this is the year Billy Walters comes out and goes boom. But to be honest, when you got players like Huss, Kerrigan, Walsh, Cobbo, Farnworth, all consistent, running heaps of meters, it makes it easy for the rest of your team, to be honest. And Reynolds, the conductor, if they all stay fit, I think the Broncos have one hand on the premiership already. They look the best team by far. But yes, Origin time is going to be the test point for the Broncos, whether they can handle that. They didn't last year. And when they lost Kerrigan, they went to sea. They're going to need to... Diversity has been a problem for the Broncos for the last 5 years. When it's got tough, they've given up. But maybe Reece Walsh has given them that bit of youth and confidence. Then maybe they will go a lot better than what they have. Yes, the Broncos going forward here. They got the Raiders, Titans, Eels, Rabbitohs, and Manly. And on current form, they could be 10 from 10. Whether or not they will be 10 from 10, time will be seen. But I wouldn't be surprised if they are very good. But they do have some tough games. We'll see where the Broncos are at. I expect them to be at least 8 from 10, but I can see it being very much 10 from 10. Tigers. Will they first one they become? It's not looking likely at the moment. They could lose 10 in a row, in my opinion. Eels, Manly, Panthers, Dragons, and Rabbitohs. Only one you can really see them maybe winning is the Dragons, but on Dragons' performance last time, not looking likely. But obviously, if Luke Brooks or whoever's in the halves find some form, no doubt the Tigers can start winning football games, but at the moment they're not looking that good at all. Yes, so it's going to be interesting to see how those goes for both those teams going forward, but yeah, Tigers fans, looks like another long season, unfortunately. Now, the game of the round. Yes, no doubt in my mind it was the game of the round. The comeback of the century. Well, I wouldn't say the comeback of the century, but it was definitely a comeback in recent memory. Because if you remember one day the Dragons come back from nowhere, where all their fans had left the crowd, they come back flying. I believe back in the day against the Tigers, something like that, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. It was some game that all the crowd had left. The next minute, boom, 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 they came back and won the game. But the yes, when a game when Nico Hines was one of the best on field and they lose the game, that's very rare. But someone just wound back the clock. Shaun Johnson over the last couple of weeks has absolutely gone beast mode, playing outstanding, playing the form that when he started at the Sharks, he was on fire, carving up for the Sharkies until he got injured just before the finals, and the Sharks derailed after that. But he was on fire for John Morris, and he's in their form right now. Can he continue it? That's what the Warriors desperately need. Interesting, the possession, 54% to the Sharks, and they lost. And the completion rate from both teams was very good at 79%. Not super great, but it was still pretty good. And the conditions, the Sharks had run for 400 metres more, so you'd expect the Sharks should have won this game. But the Warriors' kicking game was the difference. Very good. And I'm Shaun Johnson, I heard the commentary that, he should be kicking it deeper. But to be honest, Shaun Johnson's never been a big kicker. He doesn't really have that big boot in him. He's normally, his best kicking game is just floating in the bombs up in the air. So that's why he was doing that. He's not that big long kicker to the end. Often when he did the big long kicks, it'll go dead. So I'd rather him at least make sure the ball doesn't go dead, because that's what he was doing at the start of the season. He's taken that out of his game, and now look at the Warriors now. Yes, the Warriors. To me, what's happening to them is Nickel Clock stand at the back. He really looks like he's organising the defence, and he is playing tough footy, which is making the rest of the team look at him and go, yes, we can play tough footy as well. The same with Jazz Devaga. He's taken this team to another level. He's been absolutely in everything. He's been one of the best on field every game. He's just big tackles, big meters. He's been very energetic, and he seems to have got those penalties out of his game and been over aggressive, which is what the Warriors needed from him, and he is delivering. But what the Warriors need to improve on, I still think Wade Egan's playing very good football, but I think he needs to run the ball more. If he can run more, be a bit more direct, like the first game the Warriors played, if they play a bit more like that, I think they could carve up teams earlier in the match. But just go a little bit sideways. I think Wade Egan, if he can direct the ship forward, going to be interesting. And also Filey, to me, he was disappointing. And Niokore hasn't really set the world on fire since coming to the Warriors. But interesting going forward. Do you think Niokore can go to centre, and that will stiffen up the defence there? It's going to be an interesting one. That's an absolute option there, which will give Josh Curran a chance to come back into the team. I think it'll be a better balanced team and might be stronger. But yes, I mean, these guys have to learn to defend though. Filey, he's got to learn to defend because he has the attacking game. But that's always been the problem with the Warriors, to just find a way that the defense is still a bit of an issue. It has been good this season, but they've got carved up by the Sharkies, especially in their first half. So that's going to be the question mark going forward. They'll keep attacking Filey. That's the thing for me. So Niokore could stiffen it up there. But yeah, for the Warriors fans, there looks like there's a brotherhood, just like in the 2000s, and maybe this is the year they can make the grand final. You might think I'm crazy, but the way they're playing, they look like a top 14 currently. But top 8 would be fine. But for what I'm getting at Andrew Webster, he is absolutely putting the pressure on the team to really over deliver. And there seems to be an intensity there with the Warriors that they could really be a real deal in 2023. I believe this is the year the Warriors returning to the top 8. Yes, I think this will be the year. But obviously, if they want to be a true premiership threat, Johnson's going to have to play good all season. But to be honest, if you look at the overall game, the Sharks were the better team, but the Warriors found a way to win. If you look at players like Ramian, he played outstanding over 200 metres. Toby Rudolph played well for Nuke and played well. Him and Uele, he was very good as well. Nico Hines, of course. But Craig Fitzgibbon must be scratching his head. How come his team is not defending fantastically? And obviously issues in defence with Matt Moylan. It's always been there with Matt Moylan. Brings more into attack than defence, but he got carved up a bit against the Warriors. But in the end of the day, Johnson was the difference. He really showed them kicking game. And Warriors dare to dream of a elusive premiership. Obviously, why people like myself have always been critical of Johnson is he's got more power, more talent than the Legion of the Warriors, Stacey Jones, but he has been plagued by inconsistency throughout his career and obviously injuries as well. But he could really cement himself as one of the best Warriors if he can lead them to a premiership. But the Warriors do have a tough draw coming up, so we're going to see where they really are at. With the Cowboys. Oh, where are we? Sorry. Yeah, well, they really need to get going, the Warriors. They got the Knights, Cowboys, who will have a few players back. The Storm, Roosters, and Penrith. Wowza. So the Warriors, good start to the season. Can it all unravel now? We'll find out. We'll get a good gauge to see where the Warriors are at in the next 5 weeks. For the Sharkies, they get the bye, so probably a much needed bye. They would have been disappointed after that, and they can think about the Roosters, Bulldogs, Cowboys, Dolphins, and Manly. Wow, the way the Sharks are playing, they seem to go 1 win, 1 loss, and to me that's gonna plague their season again. The Sharks. They got the team to win a premiership for mine, but they just don't seem to have enough grit and defence to be true premiership force. The final game of the round was the best game of the round, in my opinion, even though it was an exciting finish of the Warriors and the Sharks game. But the Cowboys Bulldogs game, it was absolute grand final sort of football. It was tough, it was defensive, it had everything you wanted. But one plight in this game, to me, Josh Reynolds. I thought he was absolutely average in his return to the... He did bring energy, but if you looked at him defensively, he was lost at sea. He didn't look like he wanted to tackle, and they went straight through him. He's got a lot of improvement to get himself back in to stay in the team. And when he was bringing the ball around, he was playing a bit like Sean Johnson does when he goes sideways. He wasn't really bringing much to the team. Even though they got the win, it was just a little bit disappointing on his return. It's good to see him back, but I thought he was pretty disappointing, to be honest. But who wasn't disappointing? Matt Burton. He's playing very good football. Can he snag a spot in the New South Wales team? I'm not sure where he would fit in. Probably most likely 14 will be his best chance, but there's probably about 5 players looking at that position. Whether or not he can be put at centre. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of good players here. You got Katoni Stack. I'm just saying, at the moment it's Mitchell and Tom Dvorak just saying centres. Yes, I'll say Mitchell's a lock. You could argue you could put Turbo on the wing. If you put Turbo on the wing, I would nearly put those two together. You could have Adakar on the other wing, which opens up the other spot, which could be Staggs, Burton. I think it might strengthen the team more. And then not have to worry about who's going to be the other winger. But obviously they'll be leaving out Brian Tohol. So that's going to be interesting. The they have got a lot of good players, the Blues, so really they should be winning, but they seem to keep picking the wrong teams, and we'll see how that goes going forward. But the game reminded me of the Cowboys Broncos grand final, and Matt Burton having a chance to win at the end, and he hits the post, very much like Thurston, and then he goes on again to winning field goal. Very good. Yes. Who played well? Well, Jacob Corraz continues to play well. I know he won't make the Origin team, but he is playing very good football. Adokar continues to impress. He's going very good footy. Yes. Kyle Flanagan. I mean, he improved. He had an improved game. Let's be honest. He didn't have a lot better game, but still not enough. They need more direction from him. That's what he's there to do. And that's probably going to be the difference whether they make the top 8 or not, is how Kyle Flanagan goes. But I don't know where they're going to find a player to replace him. That's going to be another question if they are going to let him go. Curtis Morris was very good, and Corey Waddell off the bench. That was good for the Bulldogs, having players coming off the bench and doing well. Yes, and Tomalolo and Griffin Neen were very good for the Cowboys. But unfortunately, they just didn't quite get it done. So don't be disappointed, Cowboys fans. They went well. But then the bench probably wasn't strong enough in the end, and the few injuries have been costing them, with Scott Drinkwater still out of the play. For the Cowboys going forward, they've got the Dolphins, then they've got Warriors, Knights, Sharks, and Roosters. Yes, the top 8 credentials will be tested here. We'll see if they will be still there. And the Bulldogs, they have the Rabbitohs, Eels, Sharks, Dragons, and Raiders, which none of those teams are going to be pushovers, so it's going to test how good the Bulldogs are going in the next 5 weeks. Well, that is the Barry Charles Footy Show, the review show. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to share the video out to everyone so rugby league can be shared around the world. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, so we can get this video all over the world. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll be back for another video soon.